In this video, I will be analyzing my infographic on Barack Obama's presidency. As someone with a deep interest in American politics, Obama's presidency in particular has always fascinated me. On the right, you can see a picture of my final infographic, and in this video, I will be discussing the various design decisions I had made in order to create the final product. First, I will talk about the visual potential of appearance. Appearance is used to convey what a subject looks like by using various types of images, shapes, or other aspects that allow the viewer to relate to the main subject of focus. In my infographic, I used various photographs such as a large centerfold black and white image of President Barack Obama, as well as smaller black and white images of key cabinet members such as Joe Biden. I tried to emulate my visual language model, which you can see on the right, which uses a large centerfold image of Kobe Bryant, who is the subject of focus in that infographic. I also used various icons to draw attention to certain events, such as inauguration, legislation, and so on. The visual potential of location is key in exploiting the concept of where. Location helps the viewer understand where the topic of the infographic is taking place, or how a certain topic or a certain place relates to the topic at hand. For my location display, I used a Mercator map projection of the world that displays countries that have been visited by Obama during his time in office. I used the intensity of color to showcase how many trips Obama took to certain countries, with dark blue equaling more trips, lighter blue equaling less trips, and gray countries equaling no official trips taken to that country. I primarily used color as an indicator for the map since it shows the number of trips Obama has taken to certain countries, and through my use of color, it is easy for a viewer to see Obama's key focus on international affairs, which is the core concept I tried to get across through my location display. Numbers in an infographic showcase how many or how much, through displaying such information through charts and graphs, such as bar graphs, line charts, pie charts, and so on. In my infographic, I used various types of numbers displays which correspond accordingly to the type of information being represented. In this slide, I showcase the numbers displays for the location section of the infographic. Through these numbers displays, I tried to showcase the breadth of Obama's international trips, through large displays showcasing instances of how many trips taken to specific countries, as well as the total number of trips taken and how many countries visited. It is easy for a viewer to see these numbers displays and correlate it to the map, thus further emphasizing the concept of a world president, which I tried to get across in my location display. Going back to effectively showcasing numbers through charts, another example of a numbers display in my infographic are donut charts of partisanship in Congress when Obama first entered office compared to when he left office, which can be seen on the left side of the slide, as well as his approval ratings for when he first entered office compared to when he left office. In this slide, I would like to talk about how I emulated my numbers displays from my visual language model. On the left are some examples of numbers displays from my visual language model that I tried to emulate in my infographic. My visual language model's key focus was showcasing the number of points that Kobe Bryant had scored throughout his career by correlating them to different players, times in his life, types of shots taken, and so on. I take the general ideas of those numbers displays and edited them to match the information I was trying to display. To do this effectively, I broke my numbers displays down to correspond to the various different forms of information, such as Obama's travels, his approval ratings while he was in office, and the number of Democrats in Congress. The visual potential of relationships show connections and associations between people or things by using lines, arrows, or diagrams that showcase the intricacies of those associations. Since my infographic is about Obama's presidency, I wanted my relationship display to show the key advisors that had a lasting influence on Obama while he was in office, as well as their professional relationship to the president himself. I used a hierarchy line to show their positions as subordinate advisors to President Obama, but I kept the advisors themselves on the same level to show their equality in terms of the influence they had in his presidency. I used photos of the advisors as well as some body text to give the viewer some insight into how the advisors themselves impacted Obama's presidency. My visual language model didn't clearly have a relationship display that could translate to my infographic, but I used the image on the left, which showcases Kobe Bryant's to showcase the amount of points that Kobe Bryant scored at different points in his career, to understand how relationships could be more effectively presented when they represent associations between individuals, such as the case is with my infographic. The visual potential of time showcases when something occurred or how long something takes, and is usually displayed in a chronological order. It can be used to show events as they happen or focus on events that follow specific patterns over a period of time. In my display, I took the concept of a timeline and edited it to focus on events as they occurred sequentially rather than focus solely on the exact chronology of those events. My time display showcases major events from Obama's 2 terms in office, and to do so I used icons to show events such as major legislation, diplomatic actions, military achievements, and so on. I used arrows on the timeline to showcase the direction the time is moving and how it moves in one direction. This simplified time display allows a viewer to grasp the key concepts of Obama's time in office, as well as gain understanding in how these events played a lasting impact both in his presidency and his future legacy. My visual language model showcased time with relation to how many points Kobe Bryant scored at different points in his life. It was done through relating them to years or stages of his life. And while I didn't use the exact models from my visual language model, I believe my decision to use a truncated timeline follows the story of my infographic better and presents sequential events in an easy to understand way. My goal with creating a good time display is to effectively boil down a complex presidency with many important events to some of the key events and showcase a progression of Obama's time in office in an effective way, and in a way that allows the viewer to read that information effectively as well. Here I will discuss how I emulated color based on my color model. The colors I used are shown on the palette on the left and my color model on the far right. The key colors I used were red and blue, which are complementary and serve 2 purposes in effectively showcasing my infographic. 1, by relating to American politics, and 2, by being 2 colors that are highly contrasting to each other. My infographic, like my color model, follows a light gray background with a blue heading banner. The tone I wanted to set through the use of color was to give viewers the associated response of red and blue relating to American politics, and the rest of my color palette uses various shades of blue, which can be seen on my map display, while maintaining a singular shade of red. I did this in order to emulate my color model on the proportionate use of blues and reds. From a typography and text model, I used typefaces from the model shown here, which displays headings and subheadings in bold, capitalized sans serif typefaces, while the body text is smaller with a serif typeface. For the typography and text in my infographic, I used Arial Black for headings and subheadings, and Adobe Garamond Pro for the body text. On the left are examples from my infographic on how I effectively emulated my typography model through headings, subheadings, and body text, and various body text. I used bold headings in order to increase the readability and attract the attention of a viewer to my infographic, and I kept the body text small so that once a viewer is engaged, the body text serves as a supplemental information source that adds more to the depth of the infographic's content. Emulating visual language effectively was tricky and required me to make some design decisions that made me depart from some aspects of my visual language model. On the left, you can see various forms of emulation that I kept from my visual language model, such as the large centerfold image, boxed headings, section headings, donut charts, and so on. Since my visual language model's core focus was on the quantitative and numerically driven data, I had to make some choices in how to effectively show my information without departing too far from my model. For example, I didn't use any of the various bar charts since they couldn't effectively show information from my graphic effectively, and instead could detract from the more functional aspects instead. I moved away from certain aspects of the visual language model because I wanted to stay true to the story of my infographic, which is about Obama's presidency. By keeping a focus on that, I was able to think in a different way to showcase aspects such as relationships, time, and location separate from a visual language model, while not departing entirely and emulating aspects from the model wherever I can. The visual hierarchy can be seen evidently in my infographic. The information flows in a top-down order, with specific sections being prominent, while the overall infographic is harmonized with no one section overpowering another. I wanted the central attention to be placed on the large Obama photograph in the center of the top portion of the infographic. The blue banner background at the top allows viewers to read the information surrounding that section first, and then proceed down the infographic, looking at the donut chart displays, the relationships, following the timeline, all the way down to the location display. I wanted to organize my infographic in a way that shows a progressive story as the viewer moves down the infographic. Since all sections are important to the cohesiveness of the story, I had to make some design decisions to keep one section from overshadowing another. I had a difficult time, especially with the timeline, which originally took up most of the space of the infographic, but after some feedback and experimentation, I was able to constructively use the space in my infographic and simplify the timeline to flow with the visual hierarchy in my infographic. Unity is crucial in order to form a cohesive bond throughout the infographic. Certain elements need to be consistent with each other in order to give the infographic an organized look and feel. In my infographic, the most evident form of unity is my use of color. I use red, blue, and gray almost exclusively, and in doing so, it gives the infographic a tight, cohesive feel, with no section standing out awkwardly. Some more examples of unity in my infographic are shown on the left. The donut charts display two different types of information but are identical in their presentation, allowing them to serve the same purpose of showcasing numbers without one chart overpowering the other. Text and typography are also some more examples of unity, since almost all aspects of my infographic follow a bold sans serif heading with smaller serif body text. This keeps the textual information organized throughout and doesn't distract from section to section. Variety is also an equally important aspect of an infographic. In order to effectively display information and be interesting, elements need to be dynamic and stand out. In my infographic, the timeline is one of the core ways I implemented variety. Timeline doesn't follow a straight line and instead weaves and curves, which is an interesting way to show the sequential nature of the events. My map in the location display also stands out since it uses more complex shapes for the country outlines than the rest of the infographic. Coupled with the use of blues, it stands out in a positive way and keeps the viewer's attention without taking away from other aspects of the infographic. Unity is similar with my visual language model through the use of straight lines, circles, and boxes, and it differs and showcases variety through the unconventional display of my timeline and the more detailed look of my map. My infographic is laid out in 4 main sections: the top banner, the donut charts and relationship displays, the timeline, and the location display. Each section is laid out in a way that leads from one section to another, much like my layout model. My layout model is the same as my visual language model and follows a similar layout plan that I wanted to incorporate. In the first image on the far left, I broke my layout model down as far as possible with respect to each graphic specifically. After realizing that not all of my graphics can be emulated well and stay true to my subject matter, I took a broader layout approach and broke my infographic down into the 4 main sections I had mentioned earlier. They are grouped close together to show that they belong together and are separated by smaller section headings that precede a new section. This is relatively similar in structure to my layout model. My layout model is particular in aligning each graphic together very closely and keeping them proportional. I took a similar approach in my model. I emphasize coherence and grouping through my alignment, which can be seen in my relationship display as well as my numbers displays. In my relationship display, each photo of the cabinet member, their name, title, and accomplishments are one unit. After aligning the 4 units together, they form a cohesive group that belongs together. I take the same approach to the information in my banner, my numbers displays, and the timeline. Separation occurs when the following display deviates from the previous display, and the section headings bolster that start of the new section. This way, by aligning aspects of the same group together, a sense of cohesion encompasses that group, whereas a departure from the group alignment signifies the start of a new section. My layout model takes a similar approach with the differences and similarities in section alignment. In this final slide, I wanted to show my infographic side by side with my models as a product of emulation and different design structure. Certain key aspects can be seen emulated from each of the models, along with a sense of uniqueness that arose from design decisions that I had to make separately from my models. My model has similar proportions to my layout model, similar design structure to my visual language model, consistent and similar colors to my color model, and similar typography structure to my typography and text model. I believe I emulated my models effectively and learned a lot from how to take from existing models and incorporate those ideas in a fresh and unique way. I had some trouble throughout this process in evaluating which aspects of my models can be effectively emulated in my infographic and which aspects I should deviate from. Overall, I believe I stay consistent throughout all my models while still generating a new and effective final infographic.